Another 240 hertz refresh rate gaming monitor for fast eyeballs. All right, you guys are looking at the Viotek GFT27CXB for beastly refresh rate, obviously. This is a 1080p monitor at 27 inches diagonally across, and it has a 1 millisecond response time if you turn on the overdrive. Without the overdrive, the gray to gray is going to be 5 milliseconds, so turn on that overdrive if you want to take advantage of just no ghosting when you're talking about super fast refresh rates, and you'll need that overdrive if you're going to be going up into the high FPS zone. All right, next up on the menu, I want to talk about the choice of 1080p at 27 inches, because I usually like 1440p at 27 inches, but 240 hertz is really nice, and 27 inches, it's a nice big display. If you're right up on top of this, right, you get really close, you can see the individual pixels. It's not quite, 24 inches and 1080p, that's where I feel like it's the smoothest. So having 27 inches, back a couple of feet, it started looking perfect to me. I mean, like sitting back at a natural distance if I'm not right up on top of it. So I gotta say, I don't really have many gripes with the 1080p at 27 inches, especially if you want super fast performance in your games. 1080p is gonna be the sweet spot still, especially when we're getting up into that 240 hertz refresh rate. If you wanna be able to take advantage of that, 1440p and 4K, it's going to be a bit much, and you know, a lot of modern hardware is not going to be able to push modern games at that speed. So I think 1080p is the right decision here. The other thing I want to talk about is the TN panel. So TN panels, they look a little bit washed out in comparison to IPS panels, which have a more accurate, more accurate colors, just better saturation, better black levels. AHVA and VA panels have the best black levels, like true black. So it's neither of those, but you do have the 1 millisecond response time, the super fast. You got to have it for, that's what TN's all about. But they went in and they really engineered an interesting TN panel here that supports 115% of the sRGB gamut. What I'm going to say is this is God gamut, and that's what it supports. There's HDR that you can toggle on and off as well. Now, as far as the color goes, it looks pretty good. I mean, for a TN panel, it looks really, really good. In fact, it might be one of the best TN panels I've seen as far as just looking bright and vivid and colorful. When I turned on the HDR, though, it was a bit much for this TN panel. It, in my opinion, this is subjective. So take this with about 400 grains of salt and all that. So you got Uncle, right? His name's Chester, and he just got a camera, and he's going and he's editing all these photos. And he just learned how to use his first editing software, right? Someone pirated him a copy of Adobe Lightroom. And he found the saturation slider. The dangerous position to be in. Uncle Chester with a camera, some old photos even, and a saturation slider. So imagine your uncle got a hold of your monitor and turned that saturation slider up just a little bit too much, and then it was maybe too bright. So they were like, oh, bring up the bright, or a little bit too vivid, so like the colors were kind of mashing together and making like a cake. Well, then he brought up the brightness to fix it. That's kind of what it looked like in some circumstances, but there are lots and lots of different color profiles that you can go and change, like different FPS profiles and like cinema profile or whatever. There's a lot of different profiles in the monitor. You can you can change those around, or you can go in and granularly edit each individual thing, like your contrast, your color, and get it just right for your tastes. So that might be what you have to do. But for me, the HDR was a bit much, and I ended up turning it back off. Yes, what else we got to talk about? Oh, let's talk about the actual damn stand, because it does have a pretty nice damn stand. And one of the nicer features of this, other than the fact that the stand has a slight gamer aesthetic. Not much, just a slight gamer aesthetic. And also the bezel on the side here is basically non-existent, as is the one on top. Just have a little thick bezel on the bottom there. Now, the stand, you can do everything with it. Pivot, tilt, swivel, pivot, swivet, and also turn it sideways. Yes, you can do portrait mode or landscape mode. And you can slide it up and down so that you get it right at the height for your neck, so you're comfortable. You don't want to be uncomfortable. And it's nice to have the monitor to be about, right there. I like the fact that we have a lot of options here with the stand, and on the back of the monitor right here, you've got an RGB wheel that you can play with, and if it's close to the wall, it'll provide some illumination on the wall. If you like that, that's cool. If not, you can turn it off. There's lots of different options. So cool stand. Let's talk about this clip for a minute. So this clip goes on the back, and it is a cable management clip, and it works really well after a frustrating installation because there's just two little nubs on the side that have to snap into the... It's frustrating. It took me a while because I have a fat DisplayPort cable, and a lot of DisplayPort cables are fat, and there's only enough room in here for the cable that it comes with, and also the power supply. You can run that cable through here too, but it's barely enough room. And then if you're going to be turning this from portrait to landscape at any time, you want to remove this, because as I've found out the hard way from wanting to get done with the B-roll too fast, I turned this thing sideways really fast, and it put a lot of strain on the cables that were in here, and it bent my DisplayPort cable. Still using it right now, it works, but I had to like put it in my mouth and bend it back like a guy bending a DisplayPort cable in his mouth. So you can turn on your FPS counter on the monitor. Nice to have it built in. Didn't seem to work with Vulkan, but you know, nice to have that built in. And then you have several different crosshair options built in. If you want to turn off the crosshair in your game and use one that's built into the monitor, you can do that. And you can get all kinds of videos of yourself, like, you know, using your favorite capture software, playing games without a crosshair. And you can be really, really accurate. And all your friends will be like, man, you're so good without a crosshair. Just don't tell them that you had a crosshair turned on your monitor, you little cheater. I know what it's all about. Or you could just be really cool and not play with a crosshair. It's all up to you. You can do anything you want. It's the magic formula for happiness. Man, is this thing off again? Son of a bitch. We also have adaptive sync or FreeSync, and it worked just fine with my NVIDIA. It's an RTX 2080 Ti from Asus. Worked totally fine with that, but of course FreeSync is going to work with your AMD cards as well. So 20 series cards, totally fine. AMD cards, totally fine. Haven't tested with any 10 series cards, but if they support G-Sync, it'll usually work with your FreeSync and also adaptive sync. So that's pretty cool. The overdrive technology, you can crank that up when you're playing at super high FPS. You might need it to make sure there's no ghosting, make sure those pixels change as fast as they should change. Very important. Also a dynamic contrast mode. So if you want to turn that on, it'll bring the light up a little bit in the dark areas so you can see what's lurking in those shadows before maybe they see you. So there's that. I turned it off because TN panel already doesn't have as much of a gradation when it comes to the darker areas anyway, so it still looked really good either way. We also have a low blue light mode that you can turn on. That's usually good for before you're going to bed. Get rid of that blue light to help your circadian rhythms. All right, lastly, before we close, let's talk about the ports that you get on this. You have a DisplayPort, and you have HDMI 2.0 and 1.4. So DisplayPort is where you're going to get the 240 hertz refresh rate. If you use one of the HDMI ports, especially the 1.4, you are not going to get anywhere close to that. So if you plug it in and you see your refresh rate is not all the way up to 240 hertz, well, you're either using one of the HDMI ports or you've got a bad cable, man. Above and beyond that, there's USB in the back, and that's just a service port if you want to upgrade your firmware. Maybe you get new, I don't know what it needs really, more modes, more crosshairs. Just nice to know that there's a USB port in the back for future firmware upgrades. And also we have an audio output. You can use it for your headphones, and that'll just grab whatever audio is coming into the monitor from your HDMI, your DisplayPort, or whatever digital stuff you've got plugged into this. So that's how that's going to work. All in all, I didn't know about Viotek until I got this monitor, and the quality of this TN panel is above what I expected, actually. The speed, of course, right? It's freaking ridiculously fast. But I didn't expect the colors to be this bright and clean and lovely. At this price point, I think it's a pretty good monitor. In fact, I like it for gaming. 1080p, that is. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Just go ahead and leave one down there. And head over to epicpants.com. We got some shirts, we got some mice, we got some keyboards. It's all on sale. We've got new low prices on these mice, new permanent low prices and keyboards. Just go check it out over there. Forget about it. I don't know. How do you end these things? Just turn it by. The high FPS zone! Yes!